terms of how do you take back that power. And three simple areas that you should start looking at a little bit closer anytime you're feeling like a lack of recognition. And if we look at the case studies a little bit later, not just a lack of recognition, maybe too much recognition that's adding a bit more on your plate that you can handle. What is it that you can do about it? And what the action that we can take is going to stem from the three areas that you should be looking at when recognition holds a bit of a negative charge over you. If you feel the negative charge, this is what's happening inside of your mind. If we're feeling the negative charge, if we're feeling a negative emotion, if it's making us a little bit anxious and restless, if it's stopping us in our tracks, the thing that is happening and that we've got to take note of is that our brains are almost being hijacked. We've awakened in our brains the emotive response. And the emotive response is driven by a really primitive part of our brains that is there to protect us. A primitive part of our brains that wants to keep us securely and safely in our comfort zones, that doesn't want us to be hurt or exposed in any sort of way. And it awakens any time we're shifted and we're pushed and we're challenged in one of these three areas. And the three areas I want you to take note of whenever we're thinking about recognition are: how are my beliefs impacting how I'm feeling in this moment? So if you're feeling really anxious, restless, because recognition is attached to something, or a lack thereof is attached to an experience, then go back and say, how are my beliefs impacting how I'm feeling in this moment? The second area we look at is, how are my values being impacted? How are my values impacting how I'm feeling in this moment? And the third area that we want to look at is, are there any behavioral drivers, personal behavioral drivers that are causing me to feel this way in this specific moment? So let's unpack those a little bit as well. Anytime you're feeling, I feel stuck right now because there's an emotion that has awakened in me and it's making me feel a bit anxious and restless and uncomfortable, and I'm just feeling paralyzed in this moment and I can't move forward. So know that you have triggered an emotive response in your brain. And when the emotive response is wide awake, the one thing that happens is our rational response, a part of our brain goes to sleep. Now, if the rational part of our brain goes to sleep because all of the energy has shifted into this emotive side of our brain, it means that we are unable to respond rationally. It means that our responses are no longer responses, they are now reactions. We are reacting to a situation and we're reacting from an emotive perspective. When we react from an emotive perspective, we have given away all power, all control in terms of the actions that we should be taking, in terms of the actions that are best for us, and really best for us in terms of our wider well-being, in terms of our goals, in terms of what it is we're trying to achieve in the situation. And we've given all of that power to the emotive side of our brain that is now controlling the decisions from an emotive perspective. We've got to take back that control. But in order to do that, we've got to first know what is triggering the reactive response, what is triggering our emotive brain in that moment. And the three areas that I said we've got to look at are our beliefs, our values, and our personal behavioral drivers. And what are those? What are those exactly? Our beliefs are the beliefs that we've clocked up ever since we were born, from watching others, from learning from our family, from TV, from media, from everything that's been pushed down on us, that's led us to believe that certain things are true and certain things are the way that they should be. I mean, we could walk around with a strong belief that anytime somebody does something worthy of recognition, they must receive that recognition. And if they don't receive the recognition, it means that people don't care. It means that they are not going to get what is due to them. Now, if we hold that belief strongly and we hold onto that belief so true, anytime that belief is put into question, so we do something that we believe is worthy of recognition, we don't receive the recognition, the belief triggers, And as soon as the belief triggers, the emotive brain wakes up and says, I need to protect you. I need to keep you in your comfort zone. Someone's just pushed your button. They've triggered that belief system. I need to take over right now, because now the emotive brain's taking over. It's trying to protect us because someone has challenged a belief that we've got around recognition. So we've got to look at deeply anytime the emotive brain's triggered and say, is there a belief system at the heart of this that is forcing me to believe that recognition is so important, and if there's no recognition, I can't move forward. And when we look at an example, it might become a little bit clearer. The second area we're looking at are our values. And if we are able to connect the actions that we're taking back to values, it will allow us to keep ourselves in a rational state of mind rather than allowing the emotive trigger to then take all power and control how we're taking action thereafter. And what we value in life, if we're able to connect the activity or the task away from recognition back to the item or the need or the value that we hold highest in our lives, it's going to allow us to then shift back into gear and take action. And our values could be, so if we're looking at an example in the workplace where we haven't received the recognition that we deserved for a major project that we've just completed. I mean, we've had to go and learn something new. We've had to work all hours. We've delivered before the deadline. We've saved budget. And we complete and conclude on this project, and we receive absolutely no recognition. Now, if we go and say, well, if in this case, the emotive brain is going to come in and say, hey, but you went all out. You delivered over and above and beyond. Next time a project comes along, don't raise your hand and don't do it because they don't deserve you putting in all of that extra effort. That's the emotive response that's now awakened. Rational brain can only take over if we recognize that this project has enabled us to learn something new, has enabled us to build our CV, has enabled us to make new contacts in new industries that's going to open new doors of opportunity. And if we go back and say, what I value highly in my career, in my life, I value learning and development and growth highly. I value my career, and I value that I'm going to unlock a certain opportunity in my career. I value that I've got significant major goals from a career perspective, and the only way I'm going to achieve them is if I raise my hand to all of these new projects. Now, what have we done? We have gone and said, emotive brain, take a chill pill. I don't need to listen to you right now. You're actually just causing a whole bunch of fuss over nothing. Yes, they didn't recognize me, but I didn't do this because I value recognition. I did this because I value the learning, development, growth, and career opportunities that are going to come as a result of the effort and energy I put into that project. Once we've done that, we've quietened the emotive brain, and it allows us to move forward and raise our hands for the next project that's going to come along our way. We can never control the way our employers recognize us. We can never control the way other people around us recognize us. We can only control how we react and respond to those instances and situations. Then we could go in and put in a belief system that says, hang on a second, recognition, it comes from the way I recognize myself, the way I value the what I've put into this instance, and how I'm creating recognition around my wins and my successes in my life for myself. Now, if we go in and we replace the original belief that employers should recognize us every time we go over and above, and we deliver an extensive project, and we're able to show them how much we're worth in this organization. Employers should recognize us. And if we shift that belief and we say, actually, I need to recognize myself. Anytime I feel I've delivered over and above, anytime I've hit a certain target or a goal, I need to give myself that own recognition so that I can motivate myself to perform and to move forward. So what we're doing is, by shifting the belief, number one, we're limiting the number of times the emotive brain takes over, and we're keeping responses in a rational frame of mind. The second thing we're doing is we're allowing ourselves, if emotive brain takes over, to say, hang on a second, emotive brain, My belief system is that I self-recognize. I don't need anybody else to do this for me. I hold the power here, and I'm going to take back control in this situation. So thank you for caring, but I've got this. And rational brain takes over again. That allows us to keep moving forward. So we've looked at values, we've looked at beliefs, and now we need to look at the third driver, which are our personal behavioral drivers. Now, for any of you that I've worked with, I work very closely utilizing the contribution compass as a behavioral profiling tool. And you might have experience using other psychometrics tools or strengths finders or other behavioral tools that give you really clear insights into your specific behavioral drivers. Now, in terms of the behavioral drivers, you could be an individual who has a lot of energy or a lot of a charge when it comes to recognition and just creating a whole bunch of celebration around anything that we've achieved in our lives. And if we are the type of people who really have huge personal drivers and a lot of energy in the bucket of energy that says, I need to be recognized, I need to be celebrated, and we don't get recognized and celebrated in the workplace, it triggers the emotive brain. And once the emotive brain is triggered, then we know that we're reacting, we're no longer responding, and we've actually given away our power and control. Now we need to take it back. And the way to do that is, from a behavioral perspective, is to understand yourself intimately. Create huge self-awareness in terms of your own personal behavioral drivers, and know when a behavioral driver is triggering a certain reaction, and know how to stop the reaction and shift gears back into your rational brain in order to take back your control. The way to do that, firstly, is to have that clarity in terms of your behavioral drivers. And you've got to, if you're not going to use a profiling tools are the ultimate shortcut. But if you're not going to use a profiling tool, then you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time. Each time you see a trigger in yourself, say, is there something that might be coming from a personal behavioral need? And if it is, then I need to write it down. So I need to self-analyze, need to create self-awareness around this, and make your list. And then go back anytime you've got a trigger that is now, and we're talking about recognition, but I promise you this works in any instance where emotive brain is triggered. Go back and say, what are the 3 areas I need to look at? The 3 areas I need to look at are my belief systems, my value systems, and my behavioral drivers. Are my belief systems now triggering my emotive response in this instance? And is that what's causing me to stop, to not be able to move forward, to not be able to take action, to create an emotive response in the situation? If it is, understand the belief system, and then tell your mind, I actually need to take back my power here. That belief system's not serving me. I'm going to change it, shift gears on that belief system, and I'm going to take back my power and go back into your rational mind to find the proper solution or the proper next step that you should be taking. The second we said are your values, and what it is that you value. And anytime you find your emotive brain is triggered, go back and say, how can I reconnect this experience to something that I value highly in my life? Because if I can reconnect it to something that I value highly in my life, then I'm able to move back into my rational mind and take constructive action forward. And in the flip side is, if an experience is triggering an emotive response because something you value highly in life is being threatened or put into question, then you've got to go back and say, how can I relook at this? How can I reframe it? How can I change the context within which I'm looking at this in order to still preserve my value systems, but to move back away out of an emotive response into a rational response state? And the third area we said were your behavioral drivers. You've got to stop anytime you're triggering an emotive response. So we said recognition is what we're looking at. The recognition that didn't come stops you from moving forward, or it makes you an outburst of anger or negative emotion. Stop and say, is this being triggered by a personal behavioral driver? And if it is, what action can I take to shift gears and take back my power and control and move back into my rational brain so I can find the next steps? I can find the actions that I need to take forward. So today we're talking all about recognition and how in instances where there is a lack of recognition, it leads to unhappiness, it leads to disengagement, it leads to demotivation, it leads to many of us stopping in our tracks and being unable to move forward. And what are the steps that we can take to start to take back our power, to start to take back control, to start to take action again, constructive, rational action again. And it's looking at our beliefs, our values, and our personal behavioral drivers in order to move away from emotive, paralyzing, fear-based mindset into the rational response mindset that we're needing in that instance.